Welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is your girl, Coach Corey. This is the place where we inspire, motivate, and impact. Another beautiful video today. And today I have a guest that I had a chance to have a conversation with when I had gone to Atlanta for the I Am Africa conference. And this woman is a powerhouse all by herself. She's an encourager. She's a victor. She's more than a conqueror. She's not lacking in the self-confidence and self-love department. And she has inspired so many of us to live the best version of ourselves and or begin that journey. And so please join me and just watch part one of this interview as I introduce to you my friend and my sister, Purity Ateko, a beautiful woman with an amazing story on how we really have no excuse. We are more than conquerors. So let's hear how she overcame her own challenges and how she became the woman that she is today.
So I come from a small family, and small family because we were three. My mother and my father, my dad and my younger brother are deceased. But more than that, I always came from a larger family. My cousins, my uncles, we all grew up like my father's house was here, my uncle's house was here, my grandmother's. So we came from a village within a home. And so we were never
a home
just
within a village, or a village within a home.
A home within a village. I told you we're having a conversation. And so it never felt like we were from a small family. And then where I grew up, people would just come visit and they were family. So we were never just a small family. Grew up knowing that there was always more than 10 people in my home.
So you went to school in rural Kenya?
Oh, rural. No shoes. No shoes. From Saturday 1 to Saturday 7.
Really?
No shoes. Shoes, we wore them when we went to church. So I grew up in a very normal, very humble background.
That might explain why you're such a humble woman.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
At least, sometimes when we come to a country like this, and I know you wore shoes before you came to America, but when God has elevated, let me rephrase that. Sometimes when God has elevated us, it is not unusual to see people forgetting where they have come from.
That's right.
Probably that's why you inspired me so much, because you're so real in the way you carry yourself, even in the way you write, which we're going to talk about later. So tell us. So you finished primary school. You went to high school?
I went to high school. I always give this funny thing. I always talk about this. I always talked a lot. So to me, education and no offense to those people who love books, I loved to talk more than I loved to read. Books. And so I remember when we were choosing schools where to be admitted, I chose like the top high schools, but I knew I wasn't going to get into those. And not that I wasn't smart, but I was just like into people. I was into history. I was into talking to people, not into books. And so I did pretty okay. And I went to high school, not far from my village. And I finished high school and went to college and got married. A few years later, came to America.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
In a nutshell.
So, what are some of the challenges that you have faced that cause you to be so encouraging? Because normally what I've found is people who are like you, who are so real and so authentic, they've had their own struggle.
Yes.
They've had their own journey. What was America like when you first got here? Was it easy? Did you just come and did you collect money from the airport?
Oh yeah. There was so much in my name. I sent all of it back home. No, seriously, when we came to the US, I came with my 2 little children.
Okay.
And I had come from a good job in Nairobi. I worked at the Old Mutual, I worked at the Bangladesh High Commission. And I was coming to America to just continue on that projection. But when I got into America, I didn't know that there were so many steps to actually being to be someone to work. Yeah. And so I struggled. And if to say that God wasn't faithful is an understatement, because every day I cried and I said, I'm going back home. This place is not worth, because I always remembered where I came from.
Right.
But then it got to
because you left a good.
Oh, I left a good job.
Let me make sure I understand you. So by the time you were leaving Kenya, you were on your, you were quite settled. You had a good job. So financially, you were doing.
Oh, we had a car.
Hey!
Even though the car didn't start all the time, we had a car. So that is a good life.
Yes, and I know, because I know it wasn't yesterday.
Yes.
It was a while back.
Yeah.
Back then, a car was a real status symbol.
It didn't matter what kind it was, as long as it was a car.
There's quite a number of people who first drove their cars here.
Yes.
Of course, there's people who came with their own, people like you who had cars. So that's really, really commendable. You had a car in Kenya?
I didn't drive it because I didn't know how to drive, but we had a car. And that meant that we were doing okay.
Yes, actually.
And then to come to America and then struggle, because let me tell you, we struggled so much that when I think of people struggling as much as we did, one of the things that I do is to tell people that I struggled. And I tell people, you're going to make it if I did.
What gave you, what gave you the resilience and what gave you the hope? Because you said that you would cry every day. Crying is not, when you're crying every day, you're discouraged.
Yeah.
So what was the turning point? What changed? What happened?
I think the turning point was the fact that I realized how strong I was, because, and this is what I do. I didn't know that I had so much in me to encourage myself. You see, a lot of times we look for people to encourage us.
Yes.
When I came to America, everybody that was in my circle, we were struggling in the same way. So we couldn't encourage each other to get out of the tears, So I had to look for ways to survive.
Okay.
And so I started looking for ways to survive. I started asking, because I realized that I needed information, and some of that information I got it from people who said, you know what, to do this you must go do this. And so I started just looking for information.
So the building blocks.
Yes. But this is the thing, people don't tell, or maybe at that time people didn't tell me what I needed to be where they were.
So would you say that at that time people tended to be a little secretive?
And I don't even think it was secretive. I think it was, they weren't so sure that they were doing it the best. So they weren't so sure that
they were also learning.
Oh, they were learning. They were struggling, and they didn't know that their level of struggling was actually above somebody else's.
Okay.
So they were at one level above. And so they didn't know how to encourage. But this is what happened. I got into church, and I got born again.
Oh,
and
wow.
I found Christ. And within a short while, people started telling me that I could encourage them. I didn't know how to. I had to go look for ways to encourage people. I started reading books. I started reading the Word. I started watching. That time it was TBN and Daystar. I would watch people who were encouraging me. And then the moment that I knew that the encouragement I was getting was not just meant for me, but it was for other people, I was like, where are these people? Who needs encouragement? Because I'm ready.
You're ready to go.
I've never looked back. Never looked back.
Nice. So that is an amazing story. So where are you today? What are you doing with yourself?
Yeah. So right now, today, besides just talking to you and having such a good time, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Hold that thought. Don't talk about Atlanta yet.
Okay.
Because that's a whole other discussion.
Okay.
So tell us, are you in corporate? Are you do you encourage people?
Yes.
Do you are you a coach? Before we get to Atlanta.
Yes. So a couple of years ago, I started an organization called Beyond Next Level.
Oh, okay.
Beyond Next Level is a safe space, a group. It's a safe space, It's a platform that I use to encourage people, inspire people, connect with like-minded people, and transform lives.
Okay. Wow.
And the reason why I do that is, for a while, for almost 10 years, I really struggled. Remember that struggle before?
Yes.
I overcame that.
Yes.
And I went to school, graduated, bachelor's degree, master's degree. But my mindset was set on the old.
Ah, come on. Hey.
All right? My mindset.
Can you say that again?
I went to school, got a college degree, got a master's degree.
Yes.
But I still operated on an old mindset.
So when you talk about an old mindset,
Yes.
what do you mean? What was the barrier there?
I was not aware. I was not aware that I was operating on an old mindset until I started seeing other people succeeding. And I started seeing other people do things that puzzled me. And so I was like, what's going on? And so this is what happened. I went to visit my daughter. She lived in LA. And when I went to visit her, she had a little book called The 4 Agreements. And I read that book. And then that book was written for me. And I felt that my daughter had put that book by the bedside so that I could read it. And I'm like, oh, she's accusing me for everything. So I started reading that book. And there's a place in that book where it talks about personal freedom. I realized that as much as I was educated, I didn't have that personal freedom. And what I call personal freedom is when you are able to do and be that which you were created to be.
Okay, I will stop you right there, Madam Vihiga.
Yes,
now,
ma'am.
even gone to Madam Vihiga.
Yeah.
Because I love what you're saying and I love what you're sharing.
Yes.
And I'm already feeling challenged. I came to Atlanta this weekend so that I can hear from people like you.
Yes.
I know we're going to have some amazing speakers.
Yeah.
And so I want to wrap up part 1 of our video right here. But we're going to have part 2. So stay tuned for part 2. But for right now, we are going to end it here because we need to go do something. And then we'll come back and record the other part. I'll see you on the next vlog. Like we always say it here, this is the place where we inspire, we motivate, and we impact. So stay tuned with Coach Corey B and my good friend, Madam Vihiga Purity Ateki.